Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Golden Ratio Podcast. I am Jen, JR Mom, joined from a distance by JR Dad.
Hi.
How's it going, JR Dad?
I am baffled and bewildered by this technology, which I've done before and I've used before, and it's been successful, but I think I'm overthinking it now.
You're doing a great job.
I got all sorts of things going on here.
Well, how are things up in Maryland?
Sleepy, actually. Venk is sleeping. Guac is on the couch with his stuffed animal.
Yeah.
And Venk has stopped going into the kitchen and whining that there's some bread on the counter. But she was doing that before.
We will discuss bread on the counter more in depth in this podcast.
She's very concerned that there's bread on the counter and that she is not on the counter.
Yeah, well, you could put her up there and see what happens.
I believe she'll eat it. Let me predict the future. Okay. She's going to eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so things are pretty calm, although they have, there are episodes of excitement when I let them out. Guac thinks I should throw stuff and he catches it. He chases it and catches it.
Well, we will get more into dog status and updates as we progress, but we should begin.
No, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Preempting the dog updates section. No, that's okay.
Go ahead.
The cocktail of the week this week is Manchego's Gin Tonic in honor of our sweet cheese cube. It's a gin and tonic, Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic, Hendrick's gin, and you garnish it with a couple juniper berries, a wedge of lime, and a cheese cube, preferably a Manchego cheese cube.
That's a good drink.
It is. I sent you a picture of it. I am now... Okay, so just quickly transitioning to administrative corner. I had a whole bunch of different Instagram accounts, and I deleted a bunch of them for a variety of reasons, mostly that people were harassing me on them. So I have restarted one that integrates a bunch of the different ones I had. It's called Salt and Glitter. Salt Glitter is the name. And when I told JR Dad, I'm like, hey, JR Dad, I deleted a bunch of my old Instagram accounts a while ago, but I started a new one. It's called Salt and Glitter. Salt Glitter is the handle. You said, do you remember? It's like you licked a stripper.
I don't want to repeat these things. I'm not sure.
You said it, and I was like, I have to write that down to talk about on the podcast. Like you licked a stripper.
Salty glitter.
Salt and glitter. Anyway.
It's only because you always make the joke about glitter.
When JR Dad, a surprising amount of the time, would come home from work with glitter on his face.
From work?
You absolutely would come home from work with glitter on your face. And I would be like, JR Dad, were you rubbing your face on a stripper? Because, they were body glitter. I don't know how else you would get glitter on your face. And for a while, JR Dad would get very upset when I'd say that. And you eventually figured out that I was joking.
So far from what... I don't even know... I don't know why I was so glittery sometimes. There were things... There were reasons.
Yeah.
But it had nothing to do with what you were saying. And yes, it was... I don't know why. I would get very embarrassed.
Anyway, my account also has nothing to do with stripping, but it will feature pictures of the cocktails of the week on it. It's just stuff that makes me happy, basically. So there's some pictures of me in there, and there's a little bit of bonus dog content, but not a ton. There's going to be some Keezy pictures, and then there will also be the cocktails of the week. So if you want pictures and recipes, Salt Glitter on Instagram, you'll be able to get them there.
Nice. And I like the inside information here. It's just for podcast listeners who can get this secret introduction.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. Use the hashtag, the golden ratio / Jen's recommendation / salt and glitter /
Oh, that's not how that works
to get
20%
off the Instagram account.
Don't listen to anything JR Dad says.
That's not how that works.
That's not how any of this works.
Hey, at least I know that there's / and not backslashes. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. That is a real pet peeve of mine. Okay. Let's get into dog updates. I think we need to start with Cheggs. Sadly, we have to start with Cheggs.
Yeah. Poor Cheggs.
So, GR Dad left on Sunday morning, and Manchego was pretty fine on Sunday, and he was pretty fine. Sunday, and then Monday, he was having kind of a tough day. Like, he was panting a lot. He'd be laying down. I mean, he never did anything, right? He couldn't stand up by himself. So it's not like, oh, he had done stuff. He would just be laying down on his side and panting pretty heavily. So that's never a good sign when that happens.
No, that's at best discomfort and at worst pain.
Yeah, it's on our list of problematic things on our end of life list, like when they're kind of panting all the time. And he has been increasing the amount that he would pant overnight, where he would wake up and start panting. But yeah, he was panting a lot over the course of the day, to the point where I called your dad and I was like, I don't think he's got a lot of time left. Like, today's not the day, but like, this isn't good that he's doing this. It's not like he didn't look like he was in pain, and he didn't look like he was just gonna, like, go to sleep and die, but it was not good. And then on Tuesday, I took him out in the morning, and those last few days, normally we would take him out, and you have seen on the snaps, he'd kind of wander around, just walking around like with no real purpose, but he would wander a bit. And he had stopped a lot of that wandering. We'd take him out of the cart and he'd pee, and he'd maybe walk a little bit and do his other business, but he was walking less.
Then he just kind of planted and kind of didn't sway much, but he was just kind of standing there, sort of looking around, but he seemed, just kind of more fixed to the ground than he had been.
So I took him out Tuesday morning at like 7, and then again at like 9:30, and brought him back in. And then I got on a call, or Zoom, like work stuff. And at like noon, I came out of the call, and I was taking in my office. So I came into the main part of the house, and it smelled like somebody had pooped in the house. And so it wasn't Hobbs or Voods or CB, and Manchego had laid down in the bedroom, and I go in there, and he was just kind of laying in his poop, like he had been on the floor. He just went as he was laying there. So that's not good. I mean, not that he can get up, but he could move himself around. I mean, he would occasionally get up. He could move around. So the fact that he just kind of did that, like, that's not good. And so I'm like, okay, well, we got to clean him up, right? He's a mess, obviously. So get him in the cart. I bring him downstairs so I can shower him in the outdoor shower, which has like a wood kind of slatted floor. So it's got good traction. It's much better than trying to do it in the tub. But I wheeled him over to the grass, so he could have some time. If he had to do any more business, he could do it there. And I'm like, all right, well, like, if he can't control his bowels, like, that's sort of a sign that it's time. But, the worst part of losing these dogs is that you're always questioning if you're making this decision. Like, it's very hard taking care of a dog like Manchego. Like, he takes a lot of attention and effort. Like, everything is really hard, and that's fine. Like, those are the kind of dogs that we take, right? But you always want to balance, and I think we both kind of worry. I certainly worry, like, okay, so he has taken this step down. Am I making this decision too rashly because it's really hard to take care of him? Which, of course, is never a decision that we actually make. Like, oh, it's just too hard to take care of this dog. But you always, it's such a guilty thing to be deciding, like, is this the end for this dog?
It's interesting. I thought you were going to go the other way and say we take care of him so much and we make it possible, for him to function and stuff. Do we do it too long sometimes, right? I mean, we sort of force him to get up to go out, and we shove the food in his face, and we do everything else. It's almost like life support in a hospital.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of talked about this, that if Manchego were a dog that we had for a few years, when we got him, he would have been past the point where we probably would have brought him in. Like, they can't stand up by themselves is on that list of it's probably time for us.
And panting for hours on end.
Yeah.
Is certainly a big sign, yeah.
Yeah. But, so I took him out and, gave him some time. He basically I think he peed, but then basically sort of stood there, wheeled him over to the shower, and I am kind of rinsing him off in the shower. And as he's just standing there in the shower, starts pooping again, like, not like he squatted down to do it, just sort of starts coming out. So he clearly has like lost control of his bowels at this point, which, like, the reason that he couldn't stand up and that he was sort of wobbly is because he had some spine issues that were affecting the nerves to his back legs. And so it's not uncommon that then affects their continence. But okay, so like that's clearly a sign. And he really, I mean, I had noticed the day before he was just starting to get that look in his eyes, which is a hard thing to see because it comes on gradually. But with all the dogs that we've lost, like I was looking at the videos that I have of Swizz over the summer, who we also lost when Dad was out of town. And, she was having nosebleeds and sort of kind of catastrophically started bleeding. And I drove her up to the vet and really agonized at the vet over whether it was time to say goodbye to her or if we should, try some, how are we going to put her on steroids because they conflict with this other medicine, and what can we do and how do we buffer it? And, ultimately they did an ultrasound and found that she had a bunch of tumors, which made it a much easier decision. But going back and looking at that video of her that I think I took to send to Dad to just be like, here's the current situation, like look in her eyes, like now being distant from it, like she was done, right? Like she wasn't suffering in tremendous pain, but she was like distressed and just kind of like, guys, like why, why is this still happening?
It's like looking for help or something. It is a look. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Manchego had that, and I don't know. I mean, we're kind of attuned to it because, we take in these dogs sort of at the end, but you can kind of see it in those last couple days of videos that he just sort of has that look. And so, yeah, we decided he's not going to get any better, which is always part of this, right? Like, and let's say I'm wrong, right? Let's say it was my fault. Like I didn't give him enough time to do his business in the morning, and that's why he pooped on himself. And let's say he also kind of just randomly had diarrhea, even though it didn't look like that, but that's why he went in the shower, and maybe that would get better. Like he still had that look. He still was panting a lot. He still can't stand up. Like he still has all these other problems. So it's not like, oh, it's just this one thing, and if we just give him some medicine, like it's going to take care of that one thing, and then he'll be back to normal. So, yeah. So that was time. So I brought him up to the vet. I gave him a waffle. I gave him a waffle. Because, we've been controlling his diet so carefully to manage his diabetes. So I'm like, he can have a waffle, which he thought was very tasty. And I brought him up to the vet, and we went in. We've mentioned this with the other dogs. The vet that we go to has an acupuncture room, and so it's got like a water feature, and it's like has stained glass. It's like a very beautiful, serene room. And Dad's making.
We've been in it way too often.
Yes. Yeah. But if you have to say goodbye to a dog, like that's a better place to do it. I mean, Swizz was just in a regular vet room, and it's fine. But it's nice that they have sort of this more peaceful place that you can go, and they give you plenty of time. And, so I carried him in there, and the vet came in because normally they'll take them back and put in a catheter so they can inject them, but he couldn't walk really. So they kind of brought everything in to do it in the room. And the vet came in and she's like, well, is he still eating? And I'm like, yeah, he's eating fine. She's like, well, let's get him some snacks then. And I was like, great, give him whatever. And she's like, somebody just brought us some cookies. And so there's a vet tech. She's like, go get some of the cookies, chocolate chip cookies and sugar cookies.
No.
She said, this vet, I don't know if she has put down any of our other dogs, because there's a lot of vets who've been up there, but she's like, I always like to give them chocolate because they never get to have it. So I always think that, if we can give them some chocolate. So they brought up probably like 6 or 7 cookies, like sugar cookies with like rainbow sprinkles on them and chocolate chip cookies. And the vet tech broke off a piece of one, and Manchego didn't really know what to do with it. He's trying to get it in his mouth. He couldn't really get it in there. And then once he finally got it and ate it, you could see him be like, this is the best thing that I have ever eaten. And so he basically just broke off chunks of these cookies and fed them to him. And he's like, nom, 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 tasting them. Oh, it's so good. And then give me some more. Nom, 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 nom. While she's putting in his catheter, and we just kept giving them to him as he got the propofol, which is the anesthetic that kind of lets them go to sleep before you actually give them the euthanasia drug. So literally he went to sleep, eating chocolate chip cookies and sugar cookies, which was just a really sweet way to do it. That, it's let's find something that, he can still get joy out of eating. And, it's clearly time for him, but let's get in as much little joy for him as we can at the end part. So that was,
yeah, that's nice. And everyone was doing it lovingly. The vet practice wasn't like a clinical place. It was like a support network there.
They're really wonderful. We're lucky to have them. So yeah, actually this vet is the one who did Swizz also, because she spent so long with me, and where I was going back and forth before she did the ultrasound. But they're the ones who sent the easy cheese on the stick. They gave me the can of spray cheese in a little tongue depressor kind of stick to feed her cheese. That is the same vet who's well, we're gonna give Manchego chocolate chip cookies, and we're gonna give this with as much spray cheese as you want.
She's got the right idea.
Yeah.
Spoil the dogs at the end. Yeah.
Really great. And Swizz, man, did she love that spray cheese. Another one where it's she's bleeding all over the place. She was really uncomfortable, but she was getting a lot of joy out of that cheese. And they're like, you just give her as much cheese as you want and let us know when you're ready. So, yeah, it sucks. He was such a good boy, and I was so hopeful for him that we could, really turn things around. And, he was just in worse state than I kind of was hoping that he was.
Yeah, it's never enough. We never have enough time with these guys.
No, especially, just a couple months with him. He was a short one.
Yeah, and they do start fitting in and start getting comfortable with foods and the rest of the guys, and then, bang, another kick in the gut. I know why we do it, but it seems like, why do we do it? But I know why we do it, and we're going to do it again. I know we're going to do it again.
I was talking to our friend from the neighborhood who has a golden who comes and swims sometimes. So she came by today, and she met Manchego on Sunday for the first time. She came over right as I was bringing everybody out. And I just saw them walking past, so I opened the door, and her dog bolts in and goes to the beach. So I was so excited to swim. So I was like, hang on, let me bring everybody down. So she, that was her first time meeting Manchego, and she was just totally enamored with him. And so when she came by today, I was like, yeah, on Tuesday, that was his last day. And she was like, oh, he was such a good boy. He was so lucky that you got him. And I was like, well, we talked a lot about it. And I was like, so we'll see who they send us next. We'll
see a photograph of a dog who needs a home, and we'll be like, okay, can't resist that white face.
They know. I never say no anyway, but they know if they send a picture I go, dear Dad, the rescue group emailed, please look at this picture. I don't tell him anything else.
Oh, we're both suckers. I mean, it can't.
Totally.
Yeah, it's always the dog looking in the camera is like a guaranteed. I'll just get the car, Jen. It's fine. I'll just get in the car. Where do you want me to go?
So, yeah. So thanks everybody for the condolences about sweet Cheggs. He was such a good boy. We didn't get enough time with him.
Yeah.
So when I was making I was like, all right, the cocktail of the week this week, like we're not going to be able to drink it together because you're going to be gone. But I should make a Manchego memorial cocktail. We have Manchego cheese in the fridge, so I'm going to make a...
How much Manchego cheese?
Well, yeah. So we have several fresh wedges from Whole Foods that GR Dad got like a week ago. And so I took out and unwrapped a new, probably 5 or 6 ounce wedge of Manchego cheese. And I made a little cube out of that to put in the beautiful picture I took, which you can find on Salt Glitter on Instagram.
It's a nice picture.
It's a good picture, and it's got this cute little cheese cube in the garnish. And when I took that out, I was like, oh, like I was getting ready for dinner, so I was super hungry. And I also took out a loaf of bread and took like one of the tiny end slices and like cut myself a little, just a little slice of the Manchego cheese and put it on the bread as I was making the cocktail and getting ready to go take a picture of it. So I go out, I take a picture of the cocktail, and then I'm working on some house projects while GR Dad is gone. And so I was like, okay, I took the picture of the cocktail. I'm like, let me, I had a thing that was kind of waiting. I was soaking some stuff. I was like, okay, like this is ready. I'll just do this now, right? The little piece of bread and cheese, like I'm not starving. So I probably spent half an hour outside kind of hanging up this last stuff for the project with Voods. He was down there with me. And, okay, so time to come back upstairs. So I get Voods in the elevator, come upstairs, go into the kitchen, and there are 2 slices of bread and a ripped up plastic bread bag on the floor. And the only cheese left on the counter is like I had cut like a little slice off the wedge and put maybe half of it on my sandwich or half of it on my bread. And the other half I had just left on the counter, like at the back of the cutting board.
I was going to say closer to the window, yeah.
Yeah, so there's like a little, like slice of cheese that's maybe like an inch square on the back of the cutting board, and then the rest of the wedge was sitting on the main part of the cutting board. So the other, 4 ounces of cheese is gone. So there are 2 slices of bread on the floor. The rest of the fresh loaf.
I was going to say of the loaf, yeah.
Yes, this is a loaf. There was maybe 1 slice of bread gone from this loaf, and then the little nub that I ate. It's like a 2-pound, it's like a big ass bakery loaf of Seduction bread from Whole Foods. There are 2 slices left laying on the floor.
Yeah, and Guac is here with me.
Guac is with Ingo.
He's far away.
Only dogs in the house were Brody and Hops. Voods was with me.
Was Brody pointing at Hops?
They were both laying down. So I walk in and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. And so, I pick up the bread so Voods doesn't eat it and like wreck his keto diet. And I turn and look and Brody's gotten up and he's kind of walking towards me. I posted some video of this today and I was like, did you do this? And he kind of walks and he just pushes his head up against me. I was like, oh, you bad dog. You totally did this. And then you feel his tum's like giant. Think about how much he must have eaten to have left 2 slices of bread on the floor. That means he ate the whole loaf. I can't imagine
eating a loaf of bread.
He ate the whole loaf and he's like, I just can't eat those last 2 slices, you guys. I'm so full. His belly was huge.
But now I got to eat that cheese.
and then I go back up to him and he's got breadcrumbs in his jowls. Like there's no question. Hobbs didn't even get up. She was just sleeping. Brody's got breadcrumbs in his jowls.
Hobbs is like, I had to witness the whole thing. I was calling you, Jen. I was going to report him.
We've seen him one other time get up on the counter because he makes us pick him up and put him in the bed. Like he doesn't have great ups, but he's gotten up on the counter.
He acts like
before.
He can't jump. Yeah.
He can. And
oh, yeah.
So, dear Dad, please extend my apologies to Guaco Man for any times I have falsely accused him. Now, Guaco Man, we have also seen get on the counter. Plus, he ate that Brillo pad. He's eaten plenty of
we
things.
have some evidence.
Oh,
of
yeah.
Guaco Man's
Yes, that time he
too.
ate the 5-pound bag of dog food. The time he ate the pound and a half of raw potatoes. Like, we witnessed Guac
I don't know.
do
The
these
dog
things.
food could have been.
No.
That was Guac.
No,
That
I was the
Guac.
one out
He
there
was like in the
with
middle of
the
it. He was in the middle of it, wasn't
processed dog food coming out of Guaco
he?
Man.
Oh yeah, we have forensic
His
evidence.
giant belly. Oh my God, I have never seen a dog's belly that big. It's when Guac ate all that dog food.
That's when he drank like 4 gallons of water afterwards too, because he's like, I'm so thirsty with all this food.
Oh, it was not good. So yeah, Guac is not totally innocent, but there may be some times that I accused Guac when it actually was Brody.
Yeah,
So
Brody,
sorry, Guac.
sneaky little devil. He's like, oh, I can barely make it onto this ottoman. Oh, sometimes I need help coming on the couch. But you put a piece of cheese 6 foot in the air, and he'll jump like some kind of, I don't know, thing that jumps. It's crazy.
Ugh.
He just needs motivation. He's a funny man.
So that's the CB antics. Fortunately, he's fine. We don't get scatological on this podcast, but I have confirmed in the days since his consumption of the bread that it was in fact Brody who ate the bread. That's all I gotta say.
More forensic evidence. Somebody did point out that it really probably will undermine the Brody unloady if he eats 45,000 calories.
No
at
kidding.
once.
No wonder he's chubby still. He's sneaking, like thousands of calories. Oh my God. In other dog eating news, so I was making a cameo for someone, and they had asked for a Hops on Hops beer recommendation. It was like somebody's birthday, and they're like, could you do like a Hops on Hops beer recommendation? And I was like, sure. And so I go in the kitchen. I was like, what kind of beer do we have in here? And a friend of the squad had sent us a 6-pack of Voodoo Ranger IPA, which like people had been tweeting at us. And I was like, oh, we got to get some of that for Voods. They don't have it down here. So they sent us the Voodoo Ranger IPA. Giordad has had several cans. It's quite good, actually.
Pretty good. Yeah.
The juicy IPA. And so I was like, oh, we got Voodoo Ranger. First, I'll make a little clip of Voods like sniffing this can of Voodoo Ranger. And, that'll be cute for this video. So I take the can of beer out of the fridge. I don't open it. And I hold it up to Voods. And Voods is like, sniff, sniff, sniff. He's like, oh, interesting. And then he's like, I'm going to eat it. So I posted a picture of this where he's got the beer can in his mouth. And I was like, hilarious. He's like got a can in his mouth. It's not like he's going to do anything. Like he'll just have the can in his mouth. And he bites down, punctures the can, opens his mouth, and all this beer comes out of his mouth onto the floor. So it was like 9:30 in the morning. So the house smells like beer.
Frat house.
It smelled just like a frat house. 9:30 a.m. The good news is Vood doesn't like beer. He was not at all interested in that beer once he cracked it open. So.
But it does make sense that he punctured the can. He's been practicing on recyclables all his life.
You're totally right.
He's like, that's what I do. I chomp holes. Check out my pointy teeth.
Oh my gosh. So, other than that,
it's not Vood's Foods. In other words,
it's not Vood's Foods. Other than that, Giordad has given the Guac and Vink update. You guys are doing good in Maryland. Down here in Florida, everybody's real mellow. We have been sleeping a lot more. So, like, the dogs will wake. Like, Voods has this habit of sometimes just straight up barking, sometimes making his whiny sounds early in the morning. And Giordad will, he usually needs to go out when he does that, but then Giordad will just stay up. And so he did it at me the first day that Giordad was gone at like 5:40, which is sometimes what he does it to Ingo. And then he did it at 6:40 the next day. And so I like sleepily put everybody in the elevator, took them out. They all peed. They came back in, and I was like, we're going back to bed. I slept until 8:45. This is a luxury that I literally don't know the last time I got to sleep till 8:45, which is like normally I sleep till like 8:30 or 9 if I'm given my own control over
and
my
then stay
schedule.
up late. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So with GR Dad gone, and this always happens, even if he leaves all the dogs here, we all shift into a much more peaceful sleep schedule.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like the roasty versus crunch debate, where you're just like, we are staying in bed, and I'd be like, okay, I guess we'll get up.
And I'm like, nobody make any noise. Okay, you really need something? Fine, like go do it. We're going back to bed. And then everybody's like, okay. They're fine.
And I try to do that. And first of all, there's a guac on my pillow, and I can't go back to bed.
This sounds like a you problem, Ingo.
I admit that it's a bit soft.
Because
Yeah.
let's talk about how giant our bed is.
It's giant now.
The king size bed is here. It's giant. If
It's
guac is
giant.
on your pillow, there's literally still an entire human's worth of room in that bed between guac and me.
That's true.
You could lay in the middle.
You can fit an entire third pillow column.
Well, in
bed.
fact, so I lay on one side. Jared Dad's got his pillows on the other side. We have normal sized pillows, so there's a space between them. And Guac has occasionally been like, I'm going to lay in between the pillows. And he curls up there like a little croissant.
There's space, yeah. No, it's true, but sometimes we go to bed, we have 2 or 3 dogs now in the bed, which is nice. That's a good use of the bed. But then we wake up usually, and there's no dogs in the bed. And I
Nope.
feel like
I make snow
I can't
angels.
even see you. I don't even know what's going on. I can't read. It's like the horizon effect. I can't see as far as the other end of the bed. And
Yeah.
you're making snow angels that I can't even tell. We need to have more dogs all the time in the bed.
Yep. Anyway, I like the new bed. I think it's a good decision. Guacoman still snuggles up with me just great.
There's really no downside. It hasn't taken over the bedroom that we kind of feared it would. There's still plenty of space.
It's all good.
Now that I know Chief Brody can jump up and down, he's going to spend more time in the bed. Dang it.
CBD.
Get your butt in bed.
Okay, so that's dog updates.
My only
go
only
ahead.
regret about the timing is the cicadas are going to come out in about 2 weeks, and Guac's going to miss it. I think Guac would
Oh my God, I
be
didn't
very
even think about
dramatic
that.
with cicadas. I think he'd be like, look at these little crunchy things. They're delicious.
So for those of you who are not from the DMV, we have the Brood X cicadas. They're 17-year cicadas, and they came out in 2003. Is that right? I guess 2004. If they're
2004,
17
yeah.
year, but in my mind it was 2003. But yeah, I was in grad school and they came out, and there's just a billion everything, like all the trees, the trunks are just covered in cicadas. You can't see them. They're all over the place. Very loud, very dramatic. And so this year is cicada year again. And so I remember when they came out last time, there were a bunch of articles like in the newspaper that are like, can your dog eat cicadas? And they're like, sure, it's fine. Like, it won't hurt the dogs, except if they eat too many, they'll get kind of full, and that might give them a stomach ache. So, don't let them eat too many so that they make themselves sick. But it's fine.
What they should have said is, it's kind of gross.
It is kind of gross, but yeah. They just crunch those cicadas and the buzz in their mouth.
I could definitely see Guac getting into that. I mean, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting. I mean,
It
heck,
would
I
be.
could see Venk eating one or two and being like, weird.
My dogs, I don't think ate any last time.
Yeah. It might depend on the dog, yeah.
Did Buttercup?
No, she wasn't interested. She was pretty picky, though. She didn't even eat peanut butter. So who knows? Guac,
Yeah, that's
not
true.
picky.
No. They will probably still be out. Oh, here. Okay, I'm looking at the 2004 data. The early emerging cicadas in 2004 came out in April.
Mm-hmm.
In mid to late May, the bulk of them came out. Like, it's a pretty normal distribution looking, and the peak of it is mid to late May. And then some were still coming out in June. So, and then the die-off, calling, mating, and egg laying goes from mid-May to the end of June, and then they start dying. So, dear Dad, we're RVing all the dogs up to Maryland in June.
For the die-off? Oof.
They'll be there for calling, mating, and egg laying. So we should actually be there. Like this like peak in mid to late May. That's the nymphs coming out of the ground, those little white ones that then crawl up and molt and turn into the big ones. So that's when they come out, but then they live for a little while.
They would live for like a week or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's actually going to be plenty of them still around in June when we're up in Maryland.
Interesting. Science. Science. Yes.
We'll be up there kind of mid-June, so it won't be like the densest density probably, but there's still going to be a ton. So we will get to experiment with, we'll take bets. We'll have a pool. Which dog eats the most cicadas?
Oh, foods. What's
my God.
foods that is potentially
keto?
Vood's foods?
They had.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, this is like how old this was last time. 2004, right? Like no smartphones. I remember reading in a printed newspaper, which I didn't get, but somehow I read this, that they would have cicada recipes.
Yep.
You remember that? Where you could put them on a skewer.
I think the
and
New York
like grill
Times
them?
had like a,
I'm sure it was the Post.
Gross. I mean, it's just disgusting.
I don't eat bugs.
Yeah, there's no need. I mean, nature is wasteful with those, right? There's so many, and it's just so overwhelming that if you could eat them, you'd eat well that spring.
Well, speaking of, this actually transitioned us quite nicely into Taste of the Keys, because this week is Genetically Modified Mosquito Release Week.
Ooh,
I'm very excited. Okay.
Interesting.
So we got mosquitoes down here, obviously, but our mosquitoes are worse than most of your mosquitoes because they have Zika and also dengue fever, but especially Zika. And there's a fuckload of them. And so only the female mosquitoes bite people and carry diseases. Male mosquitoes eat nectar. They're nice.
Yes, they need their blood meal to grow their eggs.
Blood meal.
Gross. It just shows you that they're disgusting little critters.
Yep. So there are genetically modified male mosquitoes that are going to be released. I actually signed up. So you get a box. The box is full of eggs, and then you put water in it, and there's some food in it, and then that causes the eggs to hatch into sterile male mosquitoes. And then they fly out of the box and they seduce all the ladies who make no babies.
Do they crowd out the males who would make babies? Is that the theory?
Yes. So
there are some natural males floating around, right? I mean,
the male bugs will mate with the female mosquitoes, which are the ones that bite, but a death mechanism built in the mosquitoes is meant to prevent viable female offspring resulting from the mating, according to Oxitec. So basically, they can mate, but there will be no more females born. And
this does sound a little like Jurassic Park, like, it's okay, we made them all female. They're not going to reproduce naturally. We have full control over these dinosaurs.
So there is a lot of there is a vocal opposition. I think the polls show the majority of people in the Keys, including me, are in favor of this. Like they've done a lot of experiments.
I agree. I'm only joking. I think this is good.
There's billboards now. Did you see them when you were leaving? Like genetically modified mosquitoes in the Keys, unnecessary, dangerous, like blah blah, like object to it. Like there's a small group who's very angry about it.
I hate mosquitoes. They don't contribute to the ecosystem, and they can make people sick and die.
And these mosquitoes, or I don't know if it's this exact modification, but it's either this one or a variant. They have tested these someplace else. I want to say Brazil, maybe.
Israel, I think.
Is it? Anyway,
it was an Israeli study, or the Israeli scientists have developed these, so I don't know where they tested them.
Yeah. In any case, they've been released somewhere, and what they found as like it leads to a big drop in the number of mosquitoes, and then eventually, and y'all should look this up and not quote me on this, but I remember when I was like doing the research on it before, like eventually there's some evidence that there was some sort of crossbreeding between like so you have these genetically modified males mating with the females that are around, and then they have eggs, but no females survive those eggs, and the males should have the same genetic modification as their dads, and so when those males mate with the females, they also don't have it. So there's some evidence that eventually there are viable females that come out of those generations later, so there's a kind of cross-breeding between them, where they do produce viable offspring eventually, but they don't seem like they carry more disease. They don't really have any problems. It's not like a T-Rex.
You're no worse off. You've just reduced the number of females. You haven't created some kind of monster.
Yeah. So it seems like that's the bad case, is that, well, like eventually they may start making some females again. Which is
yeah,
like,
I mean that's not a reason not to do it. Yeah, exactly. It's not worse. I mean, you spray the bug spray, and eventually mosquitoes come back too, right? It's not like that's an argument.
Yeah. So I don't know. It seems like there's been a lot of testing, and then there's people who are mad and they're like, I can't believe they won't do testing, and the place is like, we did the testing and it's fine, and they're like, I want you to do more testing.
I think we're being part of the testing. That's fine.
I mean, I don't want to be super dismissive, because like you should be very careful if they're releasing genetically modified organisms where you live. At the same time, it reminds me a lot of the Purple Line people in Bethesda, Maryland, which is like a light rail line that they're putting in by our house in Maryland. And these people in Bethesda, which is a quite wealthy suburb, were very angry about it, because it's like going through their backyards. And even though
literally past their backyards.
Yeah. And when they bought their houses, they were told like, this land is, it can be used by the state for a train line, but like there has not been a train line there, and so they're pissed about it. And so they kept asking for more and more and more and more and more environmental studies, and this kind of study and that kind of study, and it's like they just didn't want it. And so they sort of used the you need to do more studies as a excuse to just not have it happen. Not giving the state a ton of credit, they have really fucked that project up. But
yes,
not for the reason that the Bethesda people were upset about.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway,
I think it's worth a shot. I think mosquitoes are a real problem and a health hazard, and even if there's some risk of unknown effects, I mean, this is an important initiative.
Yeah.
Right, this isn't something frivolous or cosmetic. This is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, we had a dengue outbreak last year. Zika is a problem down here. The EPA has reviewed it. The mosquito control district in the Keys has reviewed it. The state has reviewed it. It's been reviewed on so many levels. It's been tested in other places. There's a lot of studies out there. I mean, I read a lot of stuff about it like a year ago when there was, a question about it. And it seems like most of the people in the Keys, like from the polls that I saw, are in favor of it, but it's a very vocal group that's mad. So, I don't think of them like anti-vaxxers. I understand why they're upset or worried. But I think it's okay. The science says it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, but they're welcome to fill their house with mosquitoes so they can protect them from these genetically modified ones. That's fine. I'm okay with this. I welcome them making mosquito sanctuaries out of their houses. If they love them so much, you love the mosquitoes. Jeez.
Oh my God.
They're hateful little bloodsuckers. Blech.
Anyway, that's the Taste of the Keys. I will say, Dad, I didn't get to talk to you about this before. Something happened on our key today. because there were a ton of emergency vehicles like flying around on Sugarloaf Boulevard. And
Wow.
then someone
That's
on
unusual.
Nextdoor posts what happened on Sugarloaf because there's never, I mean, there's like a firehouse on our key. See, but these weren't just fire trucks. Like there were a lot of cop cars. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them, and there were
Cop
a lot.
cars too.
Yeah, a lot
Jeez.
going. And so one person, so someone's like, "What's going on Sugarloaf?" And I was like, "Good question, pal. Like, has anyone answered this?" And so the one answer when I checked before was a crash. Oh, look, there's a bunch of comments. There was an accident at the jumping bridge. Bad accident at the jumping bridge.
Like cars, or that's not very
It says
specific.
past the jumping bridge, almost to the park at the end, there was a bad accident. So I think that's by Sammy's Creek Landing. Oh, closer to Sammy's Creek Landing. There was an
I
accident.
mean, you have to be violating many laws to have a bad accident on that
this is like
abandoned road.
You go down, you come off of Route 1, the only road, and then there's the kind of main road through our residential area, the Sugarloaf Boulevard, and it dead ends into the old state route, which itself dead ends. There's like 5 houses down, there's nothing, and the speed limit's like 20, and it's a very narrow kind of 2-lane road.
Yep.
So
with
for there
people biking and running and walking on it too.
Yes. So for there to be a bad accident, that's not good. Somebody must have been going
People
really fast.
Do tend to
Tourists mostly.
speed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone who rents a Mustang and takes it out for a spin. Yeah, sometimes motorcycles are flying around there.
Yeah. So.
But you do have to be pretty. I mean, there are some blind turns and stuff, right? If you're going too fast, I could see you having a bad encounter with someone.
Yeah.
So,
one person says, I was told single car accident with ejection, so that could be somebody flying around who went off and hit a tree or...
tree, wall, bridge abutment.
Yeah, there's not a lot of hard stuff to hit here. The trees are all small in the key, pretty much, like the native trees.
Mangrovian.
That's the kind of wilderness protection area.
Or people's gates that have cement on them.
Mailbox or something. Anyway, that'll be our taste of the keys for next week. We'll give you all an update on what happened on our key.
Mysteries, yes.
But it sounded very dramatic. Like, I heard the first sirens and I was like, huh. And then, like, they just kept coming and coming and coming. So...
that's a lot for single car accident.
Yeah. So who knows? We'll find out, I guess.
Hopefully it'll make it into Conch Life. Do some reporting, Conch Life.
I'm sure with all those vehicles, Conclave will have a report.
At least copy the police report.
Yeah. You got a German word of the week?
Yeah, Alkoholfahne.
Say it real slow.
Alkoholfahne.
Alcohol fan.
Flag.
Flag.
But it refers to reeking of alcohol. Like if you get really drunk and you breathe, you smell of alcohol.
Quite.
And that kind of smell is called a fahne.
Spell fauna.
Fahne. It's the same word as fahne for flag.
Oh, interesting.
Except if you say der hat aber eine Fahne, it says he reeks of alcohol.
Interesting.
So if you're like stopped by the cops and like, Sie haben aber eine Fahne, haben Sie was getrunken? And then,
Sir, have you been drinking?
Do you have a flag? Do you have an alcohol flag?
And then you say, ich saufe mich.
Weil ich traurig bin.
So, that may just be too much of an inside joke for us. But saufa is like, ich saufe mich is like, I drunked myself. Is that
saufen is to drink to excess, right? It's what animals do. That's how animals drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ich besaufe mich. I'm drunking myself, right?
Yeah.
It's reflexive.
Yeah. Sauf is on a lot of signs in Paris.
Oh, well, that's different.
It means something different there.
It means accept, yeah.
Yeah. But when we were in Paris, every time we would see a sign that said Sauf on it, I would say, Ich saufe mich.
Ich saufe, weil ich
Mich,
traurig bin.
because I'm so sad. I'm getting drunk
Yeah,
because
that's
I'm
true.
so sad.
That was a good joke. It's funny every time.
It's
I
still
thought.
funny all these years later. Even though you rejected my marriage proposal, we still have that Saufa joke.
You know, I always have a problem with Paris.
All right, well, I think that's the end of this remote episode. We will be together next week for podcast recording.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. But I'm learning so much about how all the devices work together.
Well, you can keep this knowledge in your mind.
I'll go downstairs and do it from my
I was
car.
going to say, we
and
can record
you'll
from
be
different
upstairs.
rooms next time.
That just seems so unnecessary.
It does.
Never mind.
All right, well, thanks for listening to our 2-location episode this week. And until next time, don't bite anyone unless they ask you to.
Don't bite it. And wear a mask.
Bye.
Bye.